All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Josh from Michael, Non-Compliant America. We're getting a late start here today. I know none of you are going to know because it's pre-recorded. However, things I wanted to get into today, I wanted to talk about this Candace TPUSA thing, on how that's accelerating. I also want to correlate on how that ties into COVID-19 and the mass brainwashing campaign that is underway and how it's being used on the right. And I want to correlate some of the similarities that we had during late 2019, early 2020, 2021, and all the COVID hysteria surrounding ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, quercetin, all the other non-medical remedies that were going around and how they demonized it. That also correlates in with the 2020 election on how we were told to never ask questions. People were being debanked, deplatformed, investigated for asking questions. And it's a very similar thing that I'm seeing with the TPUSA Candace Owens debate. I'm not stating which side. I tend to side more with Candace in this fact. And the reason that I do that is because I don't think that Candace is doing anything wrong. I really don't. I think all the questions that she's asking and the investigation that she's doing a tremendous job doing it. There are some holes in it, the fact that she has these anonymous tips that are being portrayed. You know, it's a little mischievous, and I don't quite trust it. It kind of feels Q-ish. But again, she's uncovering stones and being like, hey guys, look at this. Hey, let's go over to this side and let's pick that up. Let's look at this. Let's look at that. Let's look at this. Let's just look at everything. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's no different than the moon landing. It's no different than the flat earth stuff. It's no different than the alien stuff. It's no different than all the other things. But why is there a blitzkrieg of media influencers and everybody and their mom is attacking her character and credibility? And she's not accusing anybody yet. She's simply unveiling different things that the FBI, the FBI, should be doing. The FBI is clearly, clear as day, lying about this whole thing. They tried to wrap it up in a bow and sell it to the public. But what I don't like is being told, hey, it's an open and shut case. Absolutely, 100% it was Tyler Robinson. Don't look at the evidence. Don't look at all the anomalies and all the weird things kind of associated with it. Don't look at any of that. A 30-06 round went into his body, and he is a man of steel. Whereas a 30-06 round could probably go through 5 or 6 people. Maybe even more. So was it a 30-06? Was it a different weapon? If the FBI, this is the thing. This is how it correlates to COVID. And remember they were saying that ivermectin was horse paste and people were dying and they were overdosing and you can't talk about it. Remember when you went to the pharmacies, even with the prescription, and most of the main high big chain pharmacies, they wouldn't even fulfill your prescription. I know this personally. I know this for a fact because then they had to get creative on how they were diagnosing you. Even if you had a written prescription from a doctor, the pharmacy wouldn't fulfill it. I still have an open ticket at the Safeway pharmacy that they have not filled for ivermectin from 3 years ago. They haven't fulfilled it. Even though I was prescribed by a doctor. Do you remember the doctor in Dallas that was questioning the masks or questioning the vaccine? He got his license taken away and he underwent this giant lawfare thing just simply for asking questions. Do you remember all of the Fox News reporters were specifically told to never say on the air, or they will never get on the air again if they challenge the 2020 election. Do you remember that? So how does this go in tandem with the Candace TPUSA thing? It's very simple. Candace is simply asking questions. There's some weird things going on with the leadership of TPUSA leading up to the Charlie Kirk assassination, immediately following the Charlie Kirk assassination. We're starting to see what's playing out. And I've always said we got to sit back and wait, see what happens immediately following the TPUSA with the Charlie Kirk assassination. What direction do they go? And we see exactly what direction that they're going. They're going straight for the money. They are grandizing Charlie Kirk's murder for profit. And I know you guys aren't going to like this. They're up and upwards of $140 million since Charlie Kirk died, the TPUSA Foundation has raised. Now, I get it. Charlie had a great movement. He was very, very, very effective with the youth. Had a high impact with the youth. And I don't care what you say, leading up to the days of his assassination, he was doing a 180 against Israel, whether you like it or not. There's tons and tons and tons of evidence out there. You can watch the PBD podcast where he was on with PBD. That's one that I reference to all the time because it's clear as day. There's text messages that have surfaced that have been authenticated that say he is getting away from the Israel lobby, everything else. He turned away money from an Israeli official that they were trying to give him an extraordinary amount of money, where it looks like that money came in since he died, by the way. But he said no to that and everything else. And we're not saying that Israel was behind it, but it's very peculiar in the fact that all of these things kind of led up to it. Usually, when you're building a case, you would factor in all of these things, especially as the public and the court of public opinion. You would factor in, you'd factor in a lot of these things to come to your conclusion. But what's happening is they tied up, the FBI tied up this little, narrative in a bow, sold it to the public, and they said, this is what it is. We found the lone gunman shooter. Yeah, we know it's not the same rifle. Yes, his dad turned him in, and this is what it is, and we're going to put him on trial. We're going to shove it down your throat, and y'all need to stop talking about it and move on and worship Erica Kirk. She's a grieving widow, and she is just absolutely in a glorious position to take over TPUSA. He had secret private journals that nobody's ever seen, and he had a giant plan and map. And so don't worry, stop asking questions. Let's move on. Let's worship Charlie for who he was, and let's continue on and do this. And you have people like Tim Pool that are talking about the midterms, talking about how the destruction of the Republican Party is now underway because we're now in a big civil war, essentially a light one between the right and the left and the far right and the other right and the neocons and everything else. But here's what I think. I think a lot of these people that quote unquote are towing the line, surprisingly, Nick Fuentes, very surprised by that. He is now a devout committed to the FBI narrative, and he's defending it. He's attacking Candace too. So everybody and their mom is attacking Candace except the public. The public is supporting her tenfold. She's the number one podcaster right now. She's top of the charts, everything else. So where's the disconnect? How are all these influencers who seem to be concerned about money, profit, views, clicks, all this stuff, why are they going against the public so much so that they're getting flagrant with wild accusations and just they're kind of losing their mind and they're losing their base. Tim Pool's losing his base because he's not in line with this base anymore. He's not in line. He's not attaching to what people want. And, you know, what's interesting to me about this is it's taken 3 months now. Erica's on a big media tour and, you know, attacking Candace on Friday or Thursday and coming out and doing this media tour. And she is kind of pretending to be a grieving widow, but at the same time, she's like attacking in such a way that it's like, well, which one is it? Do you want us to feel sorry for you, or do you want us to, you know, command or take your command? You know, it's just a really weird dynamic. It just doesn't quite feel right, you know, and it's really sad that she's put herself in this position, because keep in mind, she put herself here. She didn't have to be the CEO. I don't know why she would be the CEO. Unless she didn't trust anybody around Charlie to carry the torch the way that it needed to carry. That would be the only reason I would see that. You know, if any of you are watching Landman right now, the billionaire, I forgot his name, but he passes away, but his wife takes over the oil company. And so how interesting is it that we're now watching that in a suspended disbelief fictitious platform, all while we're watching it play out in real life too? There's a parallel there, isn't there? Really interesting, isn't it? Do you think that it was timed to do that? Do you think it's a coincidence? I don't know. But it's really interesting how there's a correlation with the new season of Landman. Literally, the grieving widow wife takes over the billion-dollar oil company and comes in and cleans house, and who knows what's going to happen. We're still dead in the season. But all while that's happening with Erica Kirk as well. I don't believe those are coincidence. I personally don't believe that. There's a lot of instances where television shows, movies correlate with future things in reality or real-time things happening in reality. And they want to dilute that. Best thing I could say is there was a documentary done by Edward Snowden, the actual documentary with the undercover footage when Edward Snowden did all these drops and whistleblower things and everything else. There's an actual documentary that came out. Immediately following that documentary to come out, they came out with a Hollywood film called Snowden to kind of overshadow, and that was a big multi-million-dollar production, to overshadow the actual documentary that came out. And they kind of married the two, except they scripted it with their own agenda that wasn't as accurate as the true documentary. And so it got overshadowed. And so nobody paid attention to any of that. But I have a question for everybody. Why is it so bad to question the narrative all of a sudden? And why is everybody following on it? And it's, again, we're being told you can't, if you question the Charlie Kirk assassination, you are attacking poor Erica Kirk. And she is a grieving widow. She's just trying to do her best. She's just trying to do everything to maintain Charlie's legacy. Well, Charlie's legacy was grabbing a microphone in the middle of a crazy crowd that disagreed with him, and all the bullets would be fired right at him. No pun intended. And I personally don't think he was shot by a bullet. That's just me. It just doesn't quite add up, but they don't want you to ask questions, whether it was a remote detonated pager that was attached to his lapel mic, or whatever it may or may not be, but they don't want you to question that narrative. And the better question is why? All right, I don't want to spend all my time on this because I do think it does suck all the oxygen out of the room. But I think it's very important to connect those two. The COVID-19, which was a military psychological operation. Think about that. That was the United States military psychological operation to get you to accept that the sky is green, and if you thought otherwise, then you were a crazy conspiracy theorist, you were a terrorist, you were anything in a vaccine denier. What else did they call us? Think of all of the media outlets where they said that if you didn't take the vaccine, you were going to die. And you can't go into a store without a mask. You can't fly an airplane unless you were vaccinated. You can't go to work unless you're vaccinated. And you better get vaccinated, otherwise you're going to die. Do you remember that hysteria? Do you remember that ridiculousness? I mean, to be honest with you, probably a lot of you fell for it, at least at the very beginning, because we're not used to weaponized media, weaponized psychological operations happening among us. Well, I can tell you right now, that is what's happening exactly. Almost identical, almost where it's too familiar, where they figured out the formula and they're just repeating that formula. And I'll tell you right now, mark my words, that formula right now is correlated with the Charlie Kirk assassination. They're doing the same exact thing. So maybe take a step back and think about where you stand on this, because just like COVID, just like 9/11, just like everything else that we've been told that turned out to not be true, vaccines cause autism, like that's coming out. Now we know. Now we know. Think of all the people that, followed into that and listened to that. So, I'm telling you, I can see it. I can see it everywhere. It's obvious as plain as day. And if you just stand outside of the debate unemotionally, you can see it. Because if you look at how these people are attacking Candace, the things that they're attacking her on, she actually didn't do or say. But they're slanting just a little bit to create emotional response, or creating a straw man debate to where then they knock down the straw man. She does this. Now the new thing is Erica Kirk, or she didn't actually like Charlie. She said to some people like Tim Pool that she hated Charlie. Okay. Well, I don't see anything that she has to gain by doing this other than trying to legitimately discover what happened to Charlie. And she's willing to do anything and everything that she can. Because anybody that says she needs to be quiet and stop doing this because she's destroying the Republican Party, I personally believe, let it burn. If we're going to let somebody be publicly assassinated in front of millions and millions and millions of people and deem that okay in preservation of a absolutely corrupt system and infrastructure, then who are we as people? We essentially have become complacent in the murder. Don't you think? Is that okay? Or what happens when we have somebody else rise to the top, have extreme amount of influence amongst the youth, and they get murdered again? That's just like par for the course. It'd be like, yeah, he got too big. What is the lesson there? Don't get too big. Don't be too loud. Keep your mouth shut. You can function. You guys can all pretend to operate in this republic, but we actually hold the cards, and we're actually the ones in control. You guys are all slaves to our system, and so sit down and just shut up and don't ask questions. And if you get too mouthy, we're going to send all of our bots and influencers that we've paid off, and just try to assassinate your character. Where have I heard that from? Is that a CIA operation? I think it is. Dated back to the 50s. Look up the economic hitman and what its role was in the government with overthrowing dictators. What is the first thing they do? They go try to buy them off. They don't take it. Then they try to get them overthrown, publicly assassinate their character. Well, when that doesn't work, then they send in the hit teams to try to take you out, i.e. the $1.5 million hit that was put on by the French government, which has been confirmed by Patrick Byrne, by the way, which it wasn't fake. It's been confirmed. He said he's confirmed it. That actually did happen. They do have an active hit team, which Candace potentially had found the individual, which I believe is from Ukraine, which if you know about Ukraine and January 6th and the Ukrainian soldiers that were on the ground dressed up as patriots on January 6th, were they working for the CIA or the FBI? I don't know. But it's kind of interesting how Ukraine is such an integral part of all of that, which is why the Democrats don't like it, because that's where all their secret operations are, aren't they? So what I'm getting at is that we have to be able to always ask questions. We have to have the First Amendment. We always have to be open for a debate. And any time somebody on the other side doesn't like real questions, real criticisms, and they start attacking the person asking the questions, you then have to question the person that's accusing the person asking questions. You know what I mean? It's like, why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? Erica Kirk, she has all the footage that she supposedly is given to the FBI. Why doesn't she just post them online? Oh, that's going to tamper the jury pool. It'll tamper the jury pool. Well, if Tyler Robinson did it and they had HD footage of the TPUSA footage of Charlie Kirk's assassination, wouldn't that make their case better? Wouldn't that tamper the jury pool in a good way to see that he was guilty? How would that tamper the jury pool? It makes you wonder, what are they hiding? What's the big deal? But we see now, 3 months later, there's a lot of money to be made in controlling the youth. $140 million as of right now. We'll be right back. All right, I'm back. If you guys haven't turned this off already, thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to follow me on X at noncompliantAF. Or visit our new news website, news.noncompliantamerica.com, where you find us Apple, Spotify, all the podcast platforms. You can find that on there, or on KSLM, 4 p.m. Pacific time, 104.3, 12:20 a.m., 104.3 FM. All right, let's get into some other news because I think I've kind of stated my piece in regards to that whole thing associated with the Candace Owens, Erica Kirk, TPUSA thing. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't pass the sniff test. I'm not saying I know exactly what happened or what's going on, but what I do know is that what they're telling us absolutely cannot be true. There's just absolutely no way. And shame on everybody that is towing the Fed slop. Shame on everybody for doing that. It just demonstrates your character. This was another thing about COVID. COVID scared the crap out of me. And it scared the crap out of me, not for the reasons that you would think. Not because I was scared of a boogeyman virus. Not because I was scared of dying or getting sick or anything else. The scariest thing about COVID, and I think a lot of you guys would agree with me, was all these people that you had around you. All these people. You had all these friends, family, everybody around you. I feel like there was a lot of strength around me for a long time. I had personally thought like, oh, there's no way that this guy or this gal is going to fall into this crap. But what scared me so bad is, this is more so around Oregon, so many people fell into the hysteria. They hook, lined, and sinkered the narrative lie. They put their mask on. They complied. And they did what they were told to do, which went completely against their gut and their entire existence. They uprooted it all, gratefully, so they can go see a movie, or so they could go fly, or so they could be socially accepted by everybody around them that also had masks on or had their vaccine card or anything else. That scared the crap out of me more than anything. And the reason it scared the crap out of me is because I'm like, holy crap. We are screwed, and we're in a society of monkeys. And we're openly, yes, thank you, can I have another, being experimented on. And you guys are okay with it. You're okay with it because it's scary to look on the other side or be on the other side of the fence. That means that you have to come up with this huge, the sweater has to get completely unwound of your entire existence, of the fictitious, fictional fairy tale land that you live in, to think that your government is there to protect you. It's like the guy, Stryker, I think his name is, on The Matrix. You know, if you haven't seen The Matrix, you should watch it. It's a great movie. But halfway through the movie, he then becomes an informant for the robots. And all he says is like, hey, you guys can implant me back in. Give me this. I want to be rich. I want to be this. I want to be that. And I don't want to remember anything. And I can, quote unquote, go back to sleep. I'll tell you whatever you want. And he gave up Morpheus, right? So many people, so many men, I'm talking to you now. I watched you cower, most of you men. I watched you cower to this. To be honest, it was most of the women that rose up and that were speaking out and everything else. Most of you men were scared. And I hope that you've learned your lesson in regards to not having your masculine energy and being able to assert your will as a man in this world and stand up for what is right. I hope that COVID learned your lesson, and I hope that you didn't fall into getting the vaccine, because that's going to affect you the rest of your life. But I hope that you're standing up now, and I hope that you're speaking out now, because you realize and you've humbled yourself, and that life isn't all butterflies and rainbows, and we are in an active fifth dimensional war with reality, essentially. Because we're competing with AI, we're competing with all these different things. So men, I hope you've learned your lesson, because I can tell you, I watched so many men I thought were good, strong men bend to the will, get on their knees, and follow suit. Start towing the line. Really sad. That was the saddest, scariest thing I've ever seen. Because I'm like, holy crap. What happens when they apply the same military psychological operation on something else as things become more radicalized? Where's all the men going to be? Oh, crap. There's nobody around. That's how they isolate you. That's how they get you. That's how they rounded up the Jews. That's how they got them. Is this exact formula to get us all divided, to get you to toe the line, even though it goes against your gut, even though it goes against logic. To toe the line, just toe the line. Keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, we're going to attack you. We're going to publicly character assassinate you. We're going to come get you. We're going to say all these bad things about you. We're going to call you a conspiracy theorist. We're going to call you a racist. We're going to call you an anti-Semite. You can't be a Republican and be an anti-Semite. We won't invite you to the country clubs. You don't get to be in the circle. You don't get to rub shoulders with all the politicians. You can't be in the in crowd like Don Powers. You know? I don't want any of that. You guys can have all that. And when you're talking about affecting that machine, what kind of Republican Party are we trying to preserve by keeping our mouths shut, according to Tim Pool? By keeping our mouths shut, we need to preserve the elections and the midterms. Well, if that's how the Republican Party is, we don't want that. To me, that's not what the Republican Party stands for. To me, those are a bunch of weak-kneed grifters that have taken over the Republican Party. And now they're warmongering, lobbying against Trump to try to get him into more wars like what's going on with Venezuela, which I know that there's more to the story of Venezuela. It is tied into the election systems. And that is a good thing. And it's a much needed thing. Because if you don't know, the Smartmatic stuff, I believe, comes from over there. It's tied in with Serbia. And it's a big ring on how they steal the elections. Which, good news also, Tina Peters is set to be pardoned by President Trump. She will absolutely be vindicated and be out of prison, hopefully, any day now. She didn't deserve to be there, and she absolutely should have been the first person, the very first person to be pardoned. But it's good that Trump is now doing that. That's great news for elections, because what good is a midterm? What good is the get out to vote? What good is all that stuff when the Democrats and some of the Republicans, they just steal the election anyway? So you can't have a fair and open, honest election. I don't care how many Charlie Kirks you have. You can't have an honest election until you fix the election system. And for anybody in Oregon that says the election system is free and fair, good riddance to you. You guys have no idea how bad it is here. You can see it, though. You can see it. Look at the politicians. We had to gather 190,000 signatures when we only needed 70, just because of the way that our governor and our government shifts, twists, tries to turn, just manipulate and mess up stuff. So we had to go 2 times more than what we need, over 2 times more than what we need, just to maybe hopefully get those 70,000 signatures that we need. Because they're going to throw them out. They're going to have this. They're going to do that. You know that that's what they're going to try to do. Because they want to shove this tax down your throat. They want to do it. They don't care about you. Do you think that our government works for us? Do you think they listen or care about anything that we have to say? No. They work for the bigger conglomerate, the superstates outside of the United States. They work for big corporations. And the big corporations have an agenda to get you as pissed off as possible, to get you up in arms, to instoke a revolution that they can control and seize more power. That's what they want. So you're in this conundrum of, well, if I don't say anything, it's just going to get worse. If I do say something, they're going to demonize me, pit me against somebody that doesn't matter, then we're going to fight and they're still going to win. That's the formula. But it's not working because people like Ian Carroll that are doing fantastic breakdowns of who pulls the strings behind everything. If you haven't checked out anything that Ian Carroll's doing, it is remarkably accurate and very, very good. But again, the mob is now attacking Ian Carroll. Not the people, but the mob. The mob of influencers, the mob of the internet, the mob of the bots. Ian Carroll's an anti-Semite grifter, which he's not. But that's what they're trying to say. It's really interesting. We are back.
They never catching us slacking. Me and my buddy, we working hard for this money.
Okay, welcome back. Last segment. Joshua Michael, Non-Compliant America. I know a lot of you probably going to criticize or hate me for that, the 3-segment rant, but we only have an hour, and I think that it's very important. Use your critical thinking skills. Absolutely use your critical thinking. I think that is a fundamental core of being human, is being able to decipher things, and that was why the United States was so powerful and why the United States is so great. Of being able to utilize your thinking skills. Open yourselves up into the mind and understand so many things around you are trying to capture your presence and capture every aspect of your thought process and just overwhelm you into ultimately becoming a consumer. They want you to consume everything. They have an invention for everything. And so that's all I'm going to say about the Erica Kirk, Candace thing. And it's sad that it's become about Erica Kirk. And I will say this only because she's putting herself out there like that. She's been quiet for quite a while, and now she's putting herself in open for conversation. Now, I don't have anything against Erica. It's kind of weird. She's kind of weird to me. Their relationship was kind of weird to me. The whole thing is kind of weird, but who am I to criticize anything? Relationships are weird in general, and I've seen a lot of weird ones. So I'm not saying that she had any ill will or bad intent, but it's just kind of a weird one. It just didn't quite, hit for me. That's funny that somebody just posted, Jamie Lee just posted on X, I will say the quiet part out loud. All the Erica Kirk weirdness that isn't sitting right with a lot of people, all of the TPUSA's shadiness and obfuscations, all of that done in service of a certain foreign nation. Pay close attention to AmFest. It'll become very clear. Interesting. So what does he know that I don't know? I mean, so yes, it does suck a lot of the oxygen out of the room, but here's what I think that it's doing. It's setting apart the bad actors in the Republican Party and the good actors in the Republican Party, and that is creating a divide. That, I believe, is healthy. Yes, we may or may not lose the midterms. Now, here's the thing. If Trump can bring integrity back into the elections, I don't think we're going to need massive landslides in order to get over the hump of fraud. If he can eliminate the fraud, things will balance themselves out in such a astronomically large way that we will absolutely have a Republican governor of Oregon. If you can clean out all the fraud, Republicans will sweep the nation. Because Democrats are basically a regional party now. Nobody follows and falls into their crap unless they're paid, which a lot of times they are, which is what the USAID funding was for, I believe. So as of, let's see, this was last night. President Trump has officially pardoned Tina Peters for her attempts to expose the voter fraud in 2020. Democrats only think that there is one crime for not voting for them. Peters is still in custody in the state of Colorado, and the governor is set to release her immediately. So that is a very, very, very good thing. And Trump is doing a lot of things, and I've been very critical of Trump, and we still should be. Sometimes we don't see everything that he sees, and sometimes he is playing a longer game than most of us would like to see. But we're over 2.5 million deported illegals. We're seeing that ramp up. I'm getting notifications all the time. People are at Walmart in Salem, Home Depot, all these different places where illegals are getting deported. This is what we voted for. This is the mandate. This is good things. And so we can't throw the baby out of the bathwater and just say, give up on the Republicans. But I think that the infighting internally is healthy because as we're still growing as a movement, as an America First foundational movement, we got to be able to sift out the bad actors. And I think these bad actors that have large platforms, voting with our listenership, voting with our subscriptions, giving them attention or not giving them attention, that's how we vote. And that's how we make change. When nobody's listening to these people, they simply will go away. But we're seeing them, as they're losing their viewership, getting madder and madder and madder. And they need a boogeyman. Candace Owens. Candace Owens. That's the boogeyman. We don't have to do that. We don't have to fall into it. Matt Walsh did a great interview with Tucker yesterday. And I suggest everybody to watch that, or at least remnants of it, because he breaks down into the same thing. And he's like, one of the things that I have is loyalty. And he made a very good point, talking about how loyalty is a characteristic, is a trait to have. That doesn't mean you believe everything that everybody says. That doesn't mean that you go inside, but you want to be loyal. I mean, that is a human function of a society. If we have no loyalty and everybody's jumping around just like what they did in COVID, there was no loyalty. And that was, I think, the foundational piece of what scared me the most about watching all these people fall in line, because they had no loyalty to themselves. And if you don't have any loyalty to yourself, you certainly aren't going to have any loyalty to me or a friend or a family member. And there's no loyalty. You got nothing to work with. And so that was one of the scariest realizations that I've had. And it's caused me to, operate amongst different people differently. Now they've come out of the woodworks and are like, "Hey, bro, how are you? How's it going?" I'm like, dude, you realize how much of a psycho you became during COVID? To me, I feel like it was very enlightening on society as well as people around you. And yes, as I have forgiven those people, I will never put them in a position that could affect me or my family. They've deemed to be untrustworthy. Untrustworthy. They're disloyal. They don't have any loyalty. And so you can't just forgive them and be like, "Oh, you didn't know," or anything else. You can be like, "Yeah, bro, you get to sit in the back. You don't get to come to the table with me. I'm sorry." But that was the ultimate test. It's the ultimate test in a lot of different ways. So that's really interesting. In some other news, censored.news, financial stuff. I don't know any of you that have been buying silver or looking at the silver markets lately, but they have skyrocketed. I believe silver hit over $65 an ounce last week. It's dipped down. It's hovering around 62. But if you look at the markets, look at what's happening, do some research on that, see who's trying to buy it, see who's trying to sell it, where the supply chain is. It's been over-purchased by purchase orders by the Bank of London. I said, I think 150 times over. It's actually closer to 350 times over, which means that the price is going to go up. It is a good investment. I'm not a financial investor, but I do suggest hoarding or purchasing that to protect your wealth. So there's a lot of fear associated with what may or may not be going on with Venezuela. And the manipulation for silver, I know I'm kind of jumping all over here. I'm just kind of browsing through this censored.news. You guys should definitely check it out. It's so cool. So cool. The silver market has long been suspected of being manipulated, with the industrial demand and physical shortages now threatening to unravel. That's what I'm seeing everywhere. The unraveling of the shorting of silver is set to break free. And I believe the $60 mark or the $65 mark was it just peeking out of the covers. And it's set to boom. Mark my words, folks. Thank you guys very much for listening. Joshua Michael, Noncompliant America. Make sure to follow me on X at noncompliantaf. Have a great day.